Hello. It's been a long time since I've done a video like this. I have quite a few people that are going to be gone for sports and stuff, 8th hour, so I'm making this second hour today. What you're looking at is an old contour map of Albert Lea and the Albert Lea area. Okay, and when I mean old, I mean this map was made in 1954. That makes it 70 years old today, in this year. All right. And a lot of stuff has changed. And we'll talk about a little bit about that. But this is not a road map that we had before we had GPS everything. Okay, this is a map that's mainly concerned with the shape of the land. It's called a contour map. If you look, there's all these little brown squiggles. And it pays attention to things like marshy areas. See the cattails? Okay. This is down along the state border between Minnesota and Iowa. Okay. Albert Lea was different 70 years ago. Okay. The town itself was smaller and fewer people lived in it, and lots more people lived out in the country. Okay. Now, I'll zoom in well, hopefully it'll work. Like, I'll just zoom in here. See those little black squares? Each of those is a farmhouse, and a black outline square is probably a barn. Okay, and there, a little black square with a cross on it is East Freeborn Church. Okay, here's a country school. There's a little black square with a flag on top of it. And if you look, there's schools all over the place, because this is when people in the lower grades, the kids walked to school. They would get bused into town to the high school for upper grades, but okay. Just look at this, okay? Stuff has changed. 70 years ago, we didn't have an Interstate 35 going, we didn't have interstates. Interstate 35 goes across here now. And 70 years ago, we didn't have an I-90 either. Now, 70 years ago, the airport, the same airport we have now, was out there. But look, it was 2 miles out in the country. Town has grown up around it now. I have kids who live like, let me get my finger here, all along the airport over here. Okay. Now, the high school obviously wasn't around in 1954. There was a little country school at the very, very corner of Hammer Road and Bridge Avenue. But Bridge Avenue then was a gravel road. It wasn't Bridge Avenue, it was just a country road. And I'm old enough to remember, and your parents may be old enough to remember, there was a little brown building at the very, very, very corner. That was a country school. And when I came to Albert Lea, that was the dressing room for the girls. They gave them a crappy dressing room, an old country school. And the guys had the field house, the old nasty field house at Hammer Field. Okay. The high school, Albert Lea High School, is, see the green hilltop? That hilltop was chopped off, the top was taken off, and the high school was put there. If you look really, 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 really carefully, see that little brown triangle right there? That was a deep spot in the ditch, and they dug it out and dammed it, and Riverland had a pond there. That's the high school pond now. It's like 30 feet deep. They had that for their ecology classes. All right. See here where we used to take care of all the stuff we washed, brushed, and flushed. When Albert Lea was smaller, the sewage treatment plant was right there. You can still see evidence of it down by where the dog pound is now. Now they have a practice football field there. Albert Lea's sewage was treated there, and then the cleaned up stuff was put into the lake. But the problem was that was, look right here. See that checkerboard? That was the largest employer in town, It burned down in 2001. It was farmland and the farmstead. It's where millions and millions and millions of pigs and sheep were brought to Albert Lea and killed and turned into food and other stuff. But the stuff that we couldn't use, the stuff that was in their stomach and intestines, it was also put into the sewage. And the sewage plant couldn't treat it enough. And so more and more stuff got untreated and put into the lake until Albert Lea had a nationally bad reputation for having an open sewer. This lake was a health hazard. So bad that the federal and state governments helped with something like 83, I don't remember what it was, a ton, millions and millions of dollars for a new sewage treatment plant, which is down here. And you may have seen it at night. It glows it glows orange. And the reason you see that is they're using powerful ultraviolet lights to kill the germs in our poop. Poop isn't dangerous by itself. It's the bacteria in the poop. If you kill the bacteria, basically poop is just dirt then. Okay, it's not going to make anybody sick. So all of our stuff that we wash, brush, and flush is piped down here in a big pipeline to the sewage treatment plant. And then the cleaned up liquids that are no longer have any germs in them are put into the Shell Rock River, and it doesn't cause any health problems, and people catch fish and eat the fish all along here. Okay. All right. Stuff has really changed. The old high school was in the middle of town. Now it's a parking lot for Mayo. Okay. That white square right there is Central Park. And kids in first hour went, "What? We had a drive-in theater?" Yeah, out in the country. Now it's where a bunch of semi-trailers get parked for a trucking company. So that was there. That's like 2.5 miles out east of town. What else did I want to show you? All right. The little brown squiggles show you the shape of the land. Let me see where I'm at here. Like, find a number. That number there means that line is 1,220 feet above sea level. This is elevation, okay? And hills will look like, there's a whole bunch of brown lines close together. Those are hills, okay? If you're a snowmobiler kid, you know where the best hills around Albert Lea are, and they're out west of town, out by Armstrong, out here. And there's some hills up here. Okay. What else? Notice this is an important number. The level of the water at the dam is 1,210 feet above sea level. Okay. That was Albert Lea Lake, 1,210. Fountain Lake, 1,215. That makes sense if you think about it. Fountain Lake is higher, and you've all seen the water go over the dam by the China restaurant there. Okay, that's a 5-foot fall from Fountain Lake to Albert Lea Lake. Okay, and you can see where the channel is. Notice the individual houses are little black squares. My house is on here. My house was built in 1952, and this map's 1954. So my house is the 5th house down from the intersection. That's the intersection of Bridge Avenue and Hammer Road. 5th house down. When my house was built, Bridge Avenue was a 2-lane gravel road. And you can see the fairgrounds. They were on the edge of town. Now they're surrounded by houses. Okay. All right. The main point of this lesson today, I better get to the subject, is the latitude and longitudes of these corners. Okay. So up here in the upper left corner of the map, see those two numbers? 4345. That's north. That's latitude. And 9330 west. That's longitude. Now, the way you can tell what's going on is if you follow this line down. to the other corner. See how now it's 43.30? Up at the top is 43.45. So in other words, we've changed from 43.30 at the bottom to 43.45 at the top. If you do the math in your head, that's 15 minutes. 15 minutes is a quarter of a degree because there's 60 minutes in a degree. So this map is 15 minutes of latitude tall. Okay? Now, if I come over here to this corner, it's 93.30 at this corner. Come over here, and it's 93.15. So from 15 to 30 is 15 minutes. Okay? So the question is, wait a second. If it's 15 minutes this way, north-south, and it's 15 minutes this way, east-west, why isn't this map square? Something's wrong. Because 15 by 15 should be a square, shouldn't it? You have to remember, this is a real place on a globe. If we were close to the equator, a 15 by 15 map, 15 this way, 15 this way, it would be square. But we're halfway towards the North Pole. So what's happening is this map, it would get skinnier and skinnier. The farther north you go, the sides would be closing in more and more and more. What I'm really telling you is, what looks like a rectangle isn't really a rectangle. It's a trapezoid. Okay, now I'm going to show you the notes we took, and hopefully they'll make sense to you. So these are the notes for first hour. A trapezoid is this shape. Okay, that if you could accurately measure the length of this from here to here is a few feet longer from the top corners to here. And I don't know how many feet it would be. That this, even though this thing looks like a perfect rectangle, it's not. Okay? That the bottom line is parallel to the top line, but the sides are leaning in. I wish I had another hand here. Okay? That this and this, the two sides are pointing closer and closer and closer, and they would actually touch when you got to the North Pole. Okay, so let me go back to this. Okay, so we drew the rectangle, and we drew Albert Lea Lake, and you notice it looks sort of like, this is a gross story. Imagine you went fishing with somebody in their boat and you found an old minnow from like 3 weeks ago. It's all shriveled up and crunched. This sort of looks like a dead minnow. There's the tail, here's the head. It's been bent. Okay, so there's Albert Lea Lake. Here's the town of Albert Lea. And we wrote parallel at the top. It's a line of latitude. And we wrote parallel at the bottom. And we wrote meridian, line of longitude on the side. And meridian. This is really a trapezoid. And we wrote those coordinates. There's the lower left, upper left, upper right, and lower right. And this was a short lesson day because we have a lockdown practice, and we talked about that so that people would be ready. No matter what hour you would have a real lockdown, you'd know what to think about and what to do. All right.